Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. As you know, these last 3 years during COVID-19, we lost some very important gatekeepers that not only were the architects of Black American music, but also brought a very unique identity and voice to the music by way of their craft, by way of composition, by way of the art of how they played their instrument. Tonight here on the Pace Report, this is a very special edition because tonight you're going to see a tribute to the great Pharoah Sanders. Now, this year, at this year's 52nd Annual International African Arts Festival at Commodore Park in Brooklyn, New York, Azar Lawrence, Tomoki Sanders, the son of the legendary Pharoah Sanders, the great Billy Hart, George Cables, and Nat Reeves played an hour-and-a-half set commemorating the life of the great Pharoah Sanders. Now, as you know, Pharoah Sanders was not only a disciple of John Coltrane, but he's one of the grandfathers of spiritual jazz and free jazz. Tonight here on the Pace Report, you're going to see highlights of this tribute performance, as well as my comments with all the musicians as they reflect on the life of the great Pharoah Sanders. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of the Pharoah Sanders tribute at this year's 52nd Annual International African Arts Festival, live at Commodore Park in Brooklyn, New York, here on the Pace Report.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, tonight was a special moment. We have some luminaries up here. I mean, we got Mr. Cables, we got Mr. Hart, we got Mr. Reeves, and Pharoah's son. It's like now, is his legacy in good hands?
Absolutely. We left it in good hands.
What does Mr. Sanders mean to you? And tell me the first time you heard and saw Mr. Sanders perform live.
I mean, probably at the Lighthouse in Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, like late 60s, I mean, like 68, 69, 70. I didn't sneak in, but we knew the doorman who let us in to hear the group. Me and Benny Golson's son, Benny Golson, he knew everybody. So we would be able to get in, stick our heads in. And then also saw Pharoah at Shelley's band.
Did he open up some ideas for you musically as you were getting into the saxophone and trying to figure yourself out?
Yeah, I mean, I think Pharoah opened up ideas for everyone. I mean, you know, I don't know exactly when I started expressing some of those ideas, but you know, but yeah, and then he and I became friends when I lived out in the 70s. I lived out different parts of New Jersey, and so did he. And so I would go. Dave befriended me, and I say Dave, Billy Hart, and Toomey, people like Tim McCoy himself lived out in New Jersey, and so Pharoah would invite me to come by and have turkey, Thanksgiving, things of that nature. So we've been friends. We've been friends for a long time. And I met Tomoki, his son, the night that he passed away.
Wow.
The night of the morning. I came in to visit Pharoah at his house, and the next morning or the next day he had passed away. I don't think he woke up.
You know, it's got to be heavy now. We're in an era now where we're losing our gatekeepers, and Mr. Cables and Mr. Hart, you know, they're still plugging away. What is it about the music moving forward that we're going to have to carry to the next level? Especially Mr. Sanders, because he brought a spirituality to this music, but he also took the freedom of the saxophone to another level.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, don't forget that he was carrying on the legacy of John Coltrane, who brought him in the fold. So it's all, you know, a lineage of John Coltrane, Pharoah, who took it another level, he took it further. But yeah, I mean, his participation started with the John Coltrane quintet, and then he was able to move, have the visibility to start to move in different ways, you know, and have the energy to be seen, you know, propelled from the John Coltrane experience.
told Azar, jazz is in good hands. Your father left a very important body of work from 67, 68 up until he left us. And I want to know how you come into the equation of you finding yourself and also living in the legacy of your father.
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm able to be a better musician. He left so much music. He left so much stories and so much things that it's all about raising your consciousness or being in the spiritual environment. You know, he was the epitome of that, of the highest level of humanity. I don't know how I can do it. I'm still trying to figure that out right now.
Reggie.
How did music come to you? And how did you find out who your father was? Because I can understand growing up as a kid, you're probably going to festivals and you're going to shows and you're probably like, who is this dude? And then as you get older, you're like, oh. And then as you get older, you're like, okay. How did you have these epiphanies about your father and his legacy?
Wow, that's a good question. I think my earliest memories was him playing at the Central Park with William Henderson, who was on bass, Alex Blake, Hamid Drake on drums, and he had Badal Roy on tablas. And Dad had this blue long jacket and a blue like Islamic hat. And he had this, I think it was Dolce sunglasses at the time. And he played the Creator as the Master Plan. And for me, I kind of look up and be like, wow. Like, it was like such a strong presence. So I think from the early age, I kind of get the presence that he had, but not to the level what I know now. I was kind of like, oh, that's Dad, he's playing his saxophone. Enjoying it, but later on I kind of understand his role to the music, especially black music.
tell me the first time you saw and heard Pharoah Sanders.
That's the greatest thing.
Obviously I heard him with John, you know. Yes, sir.
What is it that you saw in him that was a little different from Train as he evolved throughout his decades?
Well, you know, John was evolving at such a fast rate that by the time that Pharoah started hanging out with him, Pharoah was leading the charge. Him and Albert and Archie and all the cats, they always on the head. So Pharoah was able to take from John, of course, because John was studying all the time, you know. But Pharoah was. I tell you an example. Like we just a couple of years ago, he and I made a record with Joey DeFrancesco, the organ player. And when you listen to that record, you see that Pharoah has some other notes. He has some notes that were similar to John, but different. And it's really beautiful just to hear his choice of notes.
George, tell me the very first time you saw Pharoah Sanders live.
Man, I don't know. It seems like I see it probably at Slugs way back in the 60s.
What was your, when you seen him for the first time, what was your take?
Well, you know, he was a disciple of Train. I felt like he was a disciple of Train. And that you know, he was, who knows what direction he would take. But my thing was, oh man, he's in the Train game. He's like, and that was it at that time, you know. And then as time went on, you know, he kind of carved out his own space and his own, kind of developed his own concept. I think, you know, crystallized his own concept, I would say. So I knew where he was coming from at the beginning, but that when I first saw him, that was a real. I don't think you can expect to hear, oh, I know where he's going, because nobody knew where anybody was going at that time, except that he was kind of it was influenced strongly by Train, and his philosophy was influenced by Train, and he was in that direction.
band, you're you. And there's a whole myriad of free jazz, spiritual jazz, and even hip hop that comes into your mix. Explain to my viewers how this is coming into play, because jazz has always been a progression of black music.
That's true. I just feel like it's just the time, how we were dealing with the music. Like in the 90s, I grew up with a lot of stuff like Red Hot and Cool, Saint Germain, like all the acid jazz movement. So to me, I feel lucky to understand music, how musically all these elements intertwine in the most cohesive way. But it's interesting. I don't know how to really explain it, but like even with the hip hop era, we sample like Tribe Called Quest sample Gary Bart's Gently Smiles for Butter, or people like Nas sampling Ahmad Jamal. And I feel like these samples have a meaning to me. Have a meaning to it. Once you sample and chop those elements, it have a new story, a new color to it. And I feel like our music is something about that, like bringing something new, bringing something that you bring from the past, not recreating the past, but moving forward what we created. But I think that's how it is. You know, now we see Robert Glasper, Christian Scott, Thundercat,
Mono Neon,
yeah, and Casa Overall.
Yeah.
So all these musicians, they grew up in a time where it's not about having records. At the time they had like CDs and Walkmans, and now my age, I was born in '94, so we had the internet, we had like all the access, like YouTube later on in 2005, so we have a quicker access to tap into the music as opposed to the past generation. But I feel like technology it's a double-edged sword. You might miss a lot of things what the master been doing, like putting the needles and trying to practice and transcribe the song, or like learning all 12 keys, because on the record player you can't speed up or slow down in the same pitch. Everything's slowed down in all 12 keys. So now we have the technology, we can make it fast or slow with the same pitch. So sometimes technology can be different. What's the word? It can have a different perspective. And I think right now we're in a great place where I see everybody around my age to understand this music in some form, either by listening from samples or watching from a movie, or a friend of them or a family member giving them a CD like, hey, check this out, like Kind of Blue Mile, one of the most commercially successful jazz albums. And that can be the gateway to dig deeper with the music.
Right.
So I'm kind of like that. I'm kind of open-minded about how people hear this music, as long as they hear something that's up here.
You know, you brought something up that was very, very important. When I was coming up in hip hop in the 90s, Miles, before he died, he transitioned to hip hop by way of Easy Mo B. And then Guru, by way of the elder statesmen, we're talking guys like Donald Byrne, he reached out to the jazz cats and they played and accompanied him. Why do you think that there is a disconnect between your generation and even my generation with jazz, blues, and hip hop? Why is it not all connected?
Well, I think it's that's interesting. There is a disconnection between the two, because I feel like there was the era where people listened to cats like Jazz Pataz, Guru, and US3 and Tribe Called Quest, whereas my generation is more like people like Jay Dilla, Nujabes, Kendrick Lamar, and there is also a quiet bridge between it, in my opinion. And those cats didn't get their shine to really share that moment and really connect the audience until Robert Glasper. Because before them, I tell everybody, my mom's friends who love jazz or hip hop, I'm like, yo, check this out, like RH Factor, but they kind of look at Roy as the young star playing with Art Blakey or like John Higgs. They kind of look at him that way. I'm looking at him like there's a
Progression,
timeline,
yeah.
Progression. But I don't know. I feel like the answer I'll say is maybe part of the reason why I think is that everybody around that era is their parents in some ways, and I feel like sometimes we Gen Zs have an awkward thought about connecting our music with our parents' music, but I never really cared about whether or not it's my parents' music, as long as it's good music. I just want to dig into it.
Growing up, what was the kind of music that you heard in your dad's house?
So, definitely Dad, John Coltrane. There's a saxophone player I enjoy a lot, even till this day, George Adams with Don Pulling Quartet. Charles Mingus, Art Blakey, and then I'll sneak into my sister's room. She'll have like Destiny's Child and Justin Timberlake and Pac, Nirvana, or like Britney Spears. So I was in the late '90s pop era when I was checking out my dad's album, or even Journey Satchidananda.
Wow.
So these albums were in my house since I was in diapers. And I still don't know why. I really love it, but it just spoke to me to the most, as opposed to the other people like the pop artists I mentioned.
When did you know that you wanted to play saxophone? When did you know you wanted to pursue music?
I say maybe I was like 4 or 5. I told my dad, "Can I have a saxophone?" Like, he's like, no, you gotta start a clarinet and then play alto. Then you can play tenor. I was like, no, I just need it now. And I don't know, something about the sound and how it looks and how it feels is, I'm infatuated by it musically. And even to this day, like, I'm trying to figure out why I like the saxophone, but it's a very powerful instrument. It's almost like a voice, in my opinion, or like even a drum. So I feel like the way people like John or Bird, they have a voice. It's like a singer. But Dad, to me, is like a combination between a singer and having a djembe drum and play the African rhythmic anticipation to it, and just he's giving it all. So I see the purpose of the saxophone potential to the music, and how you can incorporate your sound with your conception. I feel like it's a powerful one. Trumpets, so yeah.
You just you automatically knew. Some people, musicians, James Carter told me that. He said when he played, he knew automatically what kind of work it was going to take to perfect it, and he's still perfecting it. He's still not done. I know some musicians who are still not done.
I'm not done yet. I have a lot of homework, lot of homework to do, a lot of dues to pay.
What's the one thing you want the world to know about your dad and his legacy?
I want the world to know that every note that he plays, every breath that he put onto that horn, is his truth, his vulnerability, his honesty to himself, his love to the music and to the creator. He the way you hear his saxophone is the exact same thing to his personality as a human being. Very soft, very, I don't know, this like Mufasa kind of like really like king-like energy, but also like very spiritual, about how he sees the world. So I just want the world to understand that, he's always playing for the creator. That's the one thing I want to say. Is that, I'm trying to do the same thing in my way, like, hopefully my note can reach to the creator as far as possible. That's all I want to do.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. I'd like to personally thank all the musicians that took part in this year's tribute to Pharoah Sanders. I'd like to thank Azar Lawrence, Tomoki Sanders, the great Billy Hart, George Cable, and Nat Reeves. Also, I'd like to personally thank the staff and management who put on this year's 52nd Annual International African Festival, which took place at Commodore Park in Brooklyn, New York. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos on YouTube and Vimeo, and leave comments, as well as follow me on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, to make it move. Till next time, peace.